All right, let's jump straight into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really profound intersection, the exact point where extreme, back-against-the-wall desperation collides with human integrity. We're going to be looking at two absolutely incredible true stories. And look, these aren't just your standard feel-good anecdotes. They're fascinating case studies in human behavior. We're looking at what happens when our deepest vulnerabilities are tested against our moral compass. We're going to break down the actual mechanics of making the hardest right decision and why making that specific choice can fundamentally alter the entire trajectory of your life.
So, picture this for a second. It's super early in the morning, nobody is around, and you find a wallet on the ground. Inside, $20,000 in cold, hard cash. Now here's the kicker. You know with absolute certainty that if you slip that cash into your pocket and just walk away, literally nobody will ever find out. It's the ultimate test of character when the cameras are totally off. Seriously, what would you do? I want you to just hold on to that thought for a minute.
Now, I want you to contrast that massive 20 grand temptation with a totally different extreme. We're talking just $5 single. Imagine having only $5 left to your name on a freezing cold Chicago night. You are completely broke, you're exhausted, and you're incredibly hungry. Well, that was the very harsh reality for a young man named Jake, and his story serves as our first really profound example of character under pressure.
Which brings us to part one, the test of desperation. You know, it's pretty easy to be generous when all your own needs are met, right? But what actually happens when giving means sacrificing your very last resource? So, Jake is standing outside this small diner, literally counting out his final $5. He's at his absolute limit. But then, he notices an old man sitting outside in the bitter cold. The guy is visibly shaking. Jake looks down at his meager $5, then looks back at the old man. And in just a stunning display of empathy, Jake walks straight into that diner and uses his very last dollars to buy the stranger a hot meal instead of feeding himself. So the old man is understandably pretty shocked by this gesture. When he asks Jake why he would do something like that when he so clearly needed the money himself, Jake's response is just devastatingly honest. He just smiles and says, "Because I know what it feels like to have nobody." It's this incredibly powerful realization. Even when you have almost nothing materially, you still have the capacity to give someone hope.
Well, the universe has a pretty wild way of balancing the scales. The very next morning, Jake walks into a job interview. He sits down, looks across the table, and makes a genuinely shocking discovery. The interviewer, who by the way also happens to be the owner of the entire company, is the exact same old man from the diner the night before. The man just looks at him and says, "Jake, I was at that diner last night." And yeah, as you can probably guess, Jake gets the job immediately.
Okay, moving on to part two, the heavy wallet.
Let's switch gears here. It's 6:40 a.m. on a miserable, rainy Monday in Seattle. A struggling guy named Daniel spots a lost, black leather wallet near a bus stop. Inside is a thick envelope containing exactly $20,000 in cash. Now, let's put this into context, okay? Daniel has been struggling hard for months. His rent is severely overdue, his car is barely running, but most importantly, his mother desperately needs an expensive medical procedure. This exact amount of money, it would instantly solve every single overwhelming problem he's facing. He looks around, nobody is watching. He whispers to himself that maybe, just maybe, this is the answer he's been waiting for. He slips the wallet into his jacket and starts to walk away. But he takes a few steps and just stops. Something doesn't feel right. Just as he decides to keep the money, he pulls the wallet back out and opens it again. And this time, he looks past the cash and finds a photograph. It's a picture of a 6-year-old girl smiling beside an older man. Daniel flips the photo over and reads these 4 earth-shattering words written on the back: "Daddy's reason to live."
Staring at those words, literally everything shifts for Daniel. It clicks for him that taking this money doesn't just mean swiping some anonymous cash, it means stealing someone's hope. The second he visualizes the human cost on the other end of that $20,000, the decision is made. He turns right around, walks straight to the local police station, and turns in every single cent.
Which leads us into part 3, the unexpected ripples. 2 hours later, at that very police station, Daniel actually meets the wallet's owner.
The owner, Michael, is exhausted and visibly shaking. He opens the envelope, sees every single cent is still there, and is just utterly stunned. He hugs Daniel and reveals this completely crushing truth. He says, "That money wasn't mine. It turns out the 20 grand actually belonged to his little daughter. She had been saving it up for a life-changing surgery. It was literally everything she had, and Michael had accidentally dropped the wallet while rushing her to the hospital. Hearing this, Daniel realizes his choice wasn't really a sacrifice at all. It was just fundamentally the right thing to do.
And Daniel's single crazy difficult sacrifice set off this absolute cascade. The very next morning, Michael calls Daniel to meet at a coffee shop. Turns out, Michael owns a successful construction company and has been desperately searching for someone truly honest to manage one of his teams. He slides a folder right across the table, offering Daniel a job at double his current salary. Now fast forward 6 months and just look at the cascading effects here. Daniel's mother finally got her treatment, his debts are totally wiped out, his car is fixed, and most importantly, Michael's daughter successfully recovered from her surgery.
And at 6-month mark brings this really beautiful piece of closure. Daniel receives a small package in the mail. He opens it up to find that exact same photograph of the little girl he had seen inside the wallet on that rainy morning. Except this time, there's a new, totally life-affirming message written on the back thanking him. It simply says, "You gave us our future back."
Let's wrap this up with part 4, defining your future.
So this introduces what we can call the integrity payoff. Think about it. Both of these men were completely at rock bottom. Both were handed an easy out at the expense of a total stranger, and both men chose the much harder path, which ultimately redefined their entire futures. We really have to contrast these two paths. On one side, you have that immediate temptation. For Daniel, yeah, it offered temporary financial relief, but it would have come with this intense, hidden guilt and a total loss of moral integrity. On the flip side is the long-term reality of choosing right. It leads to permanent character growth, massive unforeseen opportunities, like landing new jobs and management roles, and the preservation of your own empathy. The thing you think you're giving up is actually just making room for something way better.
Look, these stories really hit on a universal truth. Life rarely tests your character when you're sitting comfortably on the couch. It tests you when you are truly desperate. Who you are in that unobserved, agonizing moment, that defines who you become afterward. As we saw with Jake's last $5 and Daniel's heavy wallet, small acts of kindness offer immeasurable hope to others, while the hardest right decisions profoundly change your own life.
We're all going to face those moments where taking the easy way out feels like the only viable way to survive. But when life tests your desperation, will you let a difficult moment drag down your future, or will you step up and choose the hardest right decision? Choose kindness and integrity, guys, especially when nobody is watching. Because as we've explored in this explainer today, that might be the exact moment your entire life changes forever. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll catch you next time.